Welcome to the Double R Show, the podcast that features everything about North Lincoln County. The Double R Show, directed and produced by Paul Robertson and hosted by the voice of Lincoln City, Roger Robertson.
Thank you, Jenna. Welcome to the Double R Show. Double R here, along with Paul, and this is going to be a rather tasty program.
Yeah, and smells too, right? Taste and smell, they go together, right?
Everything kind of ferments and grows together.
Yeah, so we're going to look at some whiskeys and some wines and some beers and just hear from some experts on those three items.
And on top of that, you've had a very busy week. I'm surprised that you're actually here. Everything that you've had going on this past week.
Well, it just keeps rolling on. May's a busy month, and it's a lot of fun. We got a lot of stuff going on. So
we'll be back in just a moment. We're going to talk with Beechcrest, the Depot Bay Winery, and Patrick Alexander.
Yeah, from the Oregon Coast today.
A little bit Scotch. Back in a moment.
The best compliment we hear is the food was great and the service was fun. Adina Zeller here. I am proud of our family traditions in serving food, family style, and doing it with a smile. Enjoy dining out at Zeller's, Lincoln City, and Rose Lodge.
If you've ever been to Munich, it's the Oktoberfest. If you've ever been to any place else in Germany, it's good beer. And with me is a guy that knows something about good beer, Matt White from Beechcrest. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Beer, what makes good beer?
What makes good beer?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Good ingredients, good process, and a good recipe.
And where did Matt White get into making good beer?
At home initially. And my wife Amy and I moved out here from Denver. It's another real big beer town like Portland. And one thing we really liked about the scene out there is that it's kind of like a blank slate. Like you just find a bunch of people doing kind of everything, in terms of styles and the types of breweries that they set up. So like we just got really inspired. It ended up being the thing that like we would do when we would go out, as we would go to craft breweries. And then I started brewing my own stuff, and it kind of ramped up from there. I started reading a whole bunch. You can get a lot of info on the internet these days. I had it in homebrew clubs, and then when we got serious about the idea, we approached some local breweries and that we really liked and said, hey, can I just like come over and do like grunt work for you and learn about like, how do you take this thing from doing it in your backyard to like, doing it for real, and learn how to scale it up and learn, just how to carry over those processes to a bigger scale.
In the beers that you make now, is it different kinds of barley, different kinds of hops, different ingredients? What are the different ingredients that go into beer?
Yes, it does come down to the essential ingredients being some sort of like malted grain. Generally, it's barley, but we do use other things like wheat and oats. And, American brewers are actually like kind of unrestricted in terms of that. But it's mostly barley based. That's where you get the majority of your sugar content that the yeast ferments into alcohol. And yeast obviously is a big component. The water is a decent component too, although there's a lot you can do to kind of change your water. And then hops, obviously, which add a significant amount to kind of the bittering element, the flavor element, the aroma element. But yeah, those are your essentials. Of course, like you mentioned Munich, right? So I was talking to a brewer in Munich. I don't know if you know this. They have this thing called the Reinheitsgebot. I think I'm saying that right. It's like the beer purity law that basically says like beer has to conform to these pretty strict parameters. And compared to them, when I was talking to this like young kid in his 20s, he's going to school for brewing. The America to him just seems like the Wild West. There's just no rules. We just do like
get out there and do it.
Like I told him we put oats in beer, and he was like, it's no longer beer at that point, which I'm like, oh, dude, you don't even know. Like, oats is the beginning. Like, we put fruit, we put peppers, just about anything we can think of, America really is like kind of the most like kind of open and creative, we're not steeped in like thousands or hundreds at least years of tradition. I mean, some of these countries do have 1,000 years of tradition.
Absolutely.
But so I think that, especially with craft brewing, like the doors are wide open, Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's very fun.
Each keg that you make is something different?
Each batch that I make is different, right? So
how many kegs out of a batch?
For me, my system is a 7-barrel system, which like in the kind of brewing world would be considered like a pub size. Like roughly speaking, you have like nano, then pub, and then production. Like production, they're sending kegs, and well, that's macro.
Oh, okay.
So like that's an even bigger scale.
One.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's like a massive scale. And Budweiser then would be on the scale of like these massive like European breweries, too. But we're in a year, if we like turned around as fast as we could make only like a percentage of what those big guys make. You know what I mean?
How long does it take to make a keg?
Okay, so when you say keg, you're talking about like it pours into a glass and you can go and drink it.
Yep.
Yeah. So the day itself, we call it brew day. That's like when you do everything before fermentation. That process from like adding grain to water, the conversion process happens. You extract that kind of sugary liquid into a kettle that you boil it in. You add hops, you add other elements, then you cool it down, then you push it into the fermenter. That all takes like roughly 6 hours.
Okay.
On my setup, everybody tweaks the process a little bit differently, but that's about average for me. Then it's in the tank and it has to ferment. So then that's very yeast dependent. There are some yeasts that are just like ferocious and they'll get it done in like a few days, Most ales, which is a faster fermenting type of yeast, will ferment out in like a week to maybe 10 days. And then lagers are the ones that actually take a really long time. That's actually what that word means. It's like storing, it's like waiting kind of, So a lager can take multiple months depending on how long you want to let it kind of sit and come together. It's like making a good stew, you got to let it like kind of mellow out and come together,
You enjoy this, don't you?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. I got to it's a fun thing to do. Although I will say this, brewing is not like all that glamorous. It's like, oh wow, you get to make this beer. That is the fun part, the thing that you created. But the process itself is like, brew day is a lot like baking. It's like time, temperature, amounts. And then the rest of the job, honestly, is like being a janitor. You're just like cleaning stuff all the time. You're cleaning the tanks and you're cleaning the lines and it's a glorified janitor.
Most of your items that you buy, or like the barley, the hops, all come from the valley, or do you grow your own?
Oh, that's a great question. So no, we don't grow anything.
Okay.
We purchase barley, which is primarily American and Canadian. Some of it I do get from Germany, actually, for like our German beers. We do yours. It's called Weyermann. It's from Bamberg in Germany. But an American company imports that, and then we buy it from them, right? But then the American-made malts, yeah, it's coming from like the middle of the country, and the Midwest and the North. Almost all of hops, like a huge percentage of hops, do come from like the Pacific Northwest. Yakima Valley, actually, up in Washington, has like a massive percentage of the overall hops. But Oregon does produce a good amount, and then there's some in the Midwest. The interesting thing about hops is they grow really well where Pinot grows, like the same climate conditions. It's like kind of cool and gets a lot of rain and stuff like that. Hops really like that. So you have this like horizontal latitudinal range where hops grow. It generally corresponds to Pinot as well. So Southern Hemisphere hops are becoming a big thing now too. So like Australia, New Zealand, they're becoming big like hop growers.
The Brewmaster
in
Lincoln County. Matt White, Beechcrest, back in a moment.
The man who brought the rock and roll edge to the Eagles, Grammy winner and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame member, Don Felder.
Welcome to the Hotel California. Such a lovely place, such a lovely place, such a lovely place.
Saturday, May 11th, Chinook Winds Casino Resort.
Up in the fast lane.
Don Felder.
Up in the fast lane.
Performing hits like Life of the Fast Lane, Hotel California, Take It Easy, Tequila Sunrise, and more. Saturday, May 11th, Chinook Winds Casino Resort. Reserve seats on sale now at Chinook Winds box office by phone at 1-888-MAIN-ACT or at ChinookWinds.com. Chinook Winds, where concerts are better at the beach.
Owner, publisher, expert, all about Scotch. Or is it Scooch? Or is it whiskey? Patrick Alexander, a lot of questions there.
A lot of questions. Yeah, you can always scooch up to the bar for a scotch, I suppose. But yes, Scotch whiskey. That's my tipple of choice, and happy to chat about it all day and all night long.
Now, you are originally from Scotland, so is that the only place we get Scotch?
Scotland is the only place that you can get Scotch. You can get whiskey all over the place. You can get single malt whiskey all over the place, but single malt whiskey made in Scotland is Scotch, and that's all there is to it.
Are there big differences between a whiskey and a Scotch?
Yes. And these are very subjective. According to me, Scotch is better. But some people are very, very keen on rye whiskey. Some people are very, very keen on bourbon. I would leave them to argue their cases. But for me, the king of whiskies is single malt Scotch.
So what makes a good Scotch?
Well, Scotch, of course, has just 3 ingredients: water, barley, and thyme. Crucially, thyme without an H. Don't put any thyme herb in your whiskey. Thyme as in years. Years and years and years. Takes at least 10 years to make a good Scotch. It has to age, and that's where the flavor comes from. So it's painstaking work and patience.
Now, is it in oak barrels or what kind of barrel?
Yeah, for the most part, oak. Mostly reused bourbon casks. So there's a tremendous trade in casks that have been used for bourbon that then go across the water and they are reused to age Scotch. So most whiskies will be aged in that. Some of them will then be moved from an old bourbon barrel into something else, like a rum barrel or a sherry barrel. And that's becoming more popular as people look to sort of get more hints of certain flavors in there.
So when you go to Scotland, do you find a distillery on every corner, or are they tough to find?
Well, probably not on every corner, no. So in the lowlands of Scotland, which is where most people live and where most of the cities are, there's not that many distilleries. There's just a few lowland distilleries. But up in the Highlands, there really are. If there were corners, there would be a distillery on every corner. It's basically a distillery in every glen. So you name it. Glenmorangie, Glenfiddich, Glendronach, each one has its own distillery. Each one has its own unique flavor.
So you have, like with beer, you got a brewmaster that works his way up the chain, if you will. Is it the same thing with somebody that makes Scotch?
Yeah. So you'd have a head distiller, and then there would be some assistant distillers, and oftentimes it's passed down within the family line. There are some distilleries that have very, very small teams. I think some distilleries have just 3 people who work there and who crank out all this whiskey. Because, of course, there's a lot of waiting, There's furious activity, and then, you have to wait for 12 years before that's drinkable. So you've got to kill time somehow. So small teams for the most part, and experience and knowledge that's just handed down from generation to generation.
Let's go back again to the barrels. How many bottles would come out of a barrel of Scotch?
Well, fewer than you would think, because, of course, you have to bank on the angel's share. So if you put in, a 50-gallon barrel and you lay that down for 12 years, by the time you pull that whiskey out, about a third of that is going to have disappeared. It will have evaporated, and it will go through the little seams in the oak, and it will go out into the atmosphere, never to be seen again, never to be drunk. And that's the angel's share. And it's that distillation, that continued sort of distillation as it ages, that really lets the whiskey mellow and unlocks all those wonderful flavors.
Are there that big a difference between one Scotch and another?
Yes, yeah. Some of them are quite similar, especially if they're from a similar area. But I suppose the secret 4th ingredient that I didn't mention at the start is these trace minerals that are in the rock that come through in the water, and that over the course of all those years is what gives those whiskies their unique flavor. So a whiskey from the Western Isles is going to be very, very different from a whiskey that comes from the Highlands or the Lowlands, and that's largely because of all of those trace minerals that it picks up as the water percolates down through the soil. You've got a lot more peat on the Western Isles, and so that's where you get that peaty, smoky flavor that some people love and some people can't abide, but it's there.
There is a lot to the distilling of Scotch.
There is, yeah, there is. It's a really interesting field. It's something that is becoming increasingly popular. I remember my mother telling me when she was young, blended whiskey was all the rage. That was what was fashionable. But now, of course, it's single malt Scotch. Everybody wants to really hone in on the skill of that distiller. It's getting the recognition that I think it's always deserved.
Now, does a true Scotsman drink it neat or on the rocks?
Well, my only rule whenever I have people around for whiskey is you should drink your whiskey however you like it. But the way I drink it, which is the way my mother always drank it, is neat, but just with a splash of water. She said it unlocks the flavors. Why they lock up the flavors to begin with, I don't know. But a little splash does you no harm.
No rocks.
No rocks for me. No, makes it too cold. It's like if you have a tomato and you take it out of the fridge, it doesn't taste right. You have to have that tomato at room temperature. And for me, the same with Scotch. So if you're adding a little splash of water, don't make it ice water. Just make it just straight from the tap is perfect.
If I walk over to Kenny's right now and I'm going to buy a nice bottle of Scotch to take home, what am I going to look for?
Well, if I was going to, we're lucky that we've got such wonderful liquor stores here in town. It's a great side effect, I think, of a lot of people coming to the coast to enjoy themselves, have reunions. It's not hard to find a good bottle of Scotch here. I always recommend the 12-year-old Aberlour. That is a great starting point. And if people try that and have any questions, they can feel free to get in touch with me. I'll make some more suggestions.
Get in touch with him at Oregon Coast Today. We'll be back in just a moment. If you're looking for great early garden fresh produce, it's Kenny's IGA in the Bay Area of Lincoln City. 4 generations of Morgans caring for your every grocery need. All of your favorite beverages, a full deli, meat, produce, and of course, groceries.
We at La Roca are proud of our food, but don't take our word for it. Read the reviews. One person wrote, the service was friendly and efficient. Another writes, La Roca has become one of our favorites because it's authentic Mexican food.
Hello, this is Paul Robertson with Robertson Environmental, and as a proud Taft High graduate and Oregon Coast Community College Shark, I'm encouraging all listeners of the Double R Show to vote yes on the upcoming college bond measure. Join me in supporting vocational training at our local community college. Again, vote yes for Oregon Coast Community College.
Wouldn't it be great to have all your insurance needs handled by one agency? This is Charlotte Lado with Farmers Insurance and the Insurance Store. Visit our office next to the Wildflower Grill in Lincoln City. Let us be your one stop for your personal, commercial, health, and Medicare insurance needs.
The third leg, if you will, of the Spirits program is going to be hosted this time by Travis Stetzel. And Travis is with the Nehalem Bay Winery and the Depot Bay Winery, both owned by the family, 3 generations, right?
Yes, I'm the 3rd generation. Our winery. I've been running our location in Depot Bay, our Depot Bay Winery or Depot Bay Wine Cave, since 2010. So for almost 15 years now. And it's always a good time. The wine industry is a great industry. They call it the wine industry, but it's a people industry. It's all about the people you meet and bringing people together and creating memories, and it's a really great industry.
It really has blossomed, if you will, correct?
Yeah.
For Oregon.
Yeah, we started in 74, our first vintage being 73, opened in 74. And since then, there's now, back then there were maybe 8 to 10 wineries in the mid 70s. And now there's over 1,000 wineries in Oregon. Fast forward 50 years later.
I read someplace a long time ago that Sokol Blosser produces more wine than all of the Oregon wineries combined. And the Mondavi does the same thing down in California. That's a huge volume of wine. You guys are more boutique.
Yeah, we're a very small producer. Our annual case production is like 4,500 or 4,000 cases to 6,000 cases annually.
That's a lot of wine.
Yeah, it's a lot of wine, but in terms of the wine industry, it's pretty tiny. Like a big producer in Oregon would probably be like considered over maybe 20 or 25,000 cases. The really big producers, maybe there's a dozen or less really big producers that are producing over 100,000 cases but we just produce 4,000 to 6,000 cases annually.
Now, do you have your own grapes, or do you do your own crush, or what's the?
We've been
story?
sourcing our fruit during our entire existence. We've been fortunate to have a very good relationship with our grape growers, so we've been able to source the fruit from the same vineyard for 50 years now. So the fruit's always been coming from the same place. So it's nice to have that continuity and have that good relationship. And we're in a really great growing region, so that helps too. Having some renowned and good neighbors. The wine industry is it's a very tight-knit community, and everybody kind of helps everyone, and the high tides raise all the boats, and what's good for one winery is good for all. When somebody gets a big media hit, it just brings more wine tourism to the state, and it helps everyone.
Most of yours is sold through your 2 stores?
Yes, the bulk of our sales are through our tasting rooms in Depot Bay and in Nehalem at our winery, Nehalem Bay Winery. We've been direct to consumer focused since our start in the 70s. We are very small, so distribution isn't, a great option for us. Basically, we've always been direct to consumer focused for our 50-year existence, and that's kind of the way the whole wine industry's been going in for the past 10 or 20 years. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the really big guys that are like fighting over shelf space and really focused on distribution. And we do a little bit of distribution, but mostly just locally to local small businesses that know us and are fans of our wines. And so a few local places around our wineries will carry our wineries, but we're not with a distributor. So
now you also not only do wine from grapes, you use other fruit as well.
Yes. So when we started in 74, we had 3 traditional wines and 3 fruit wines. We started out with an apricot wine, a blackberry wine, and a plum wine for fruit wines. And then for traditional wines, we had a Pinot Noir, a Pinot Gris, and a Rosé of Pinot Noir. So we've been producing Rosé now for 50 years, and we still produce all of those wines except for the apricot. We do not do apricot anymore. Mm-hmm. The fruit costs have gotten really high, and we haven't done apricot in a long time.
Your favorite?
My favorite is the Pinot Noir, almost every single vintage. That's what we do best. I grew up in the Oregon wine industry. It's hard not to love Pinot when we got so much great Pinot Noir around. Lately, I've really been enjoying for current releases. Biggest standout for me lately, besides our Pinot Noir, has been our 21 vintage of Pinot Gris. 21 was a really outstanding vintage, maybe best vintage in 10 plus years in our growing region within the Willamette Valley, the Eola Amity Hills. It was a really great vintage. And Pinot Gris is not usually my favorite, but it's just a really outstanding vintage, so you can't deny it.
The Depot Bay Chamber of Commerce for years went over to Linfield College and cooked the salmon for the International Pinot Noir Wine Festival. Were you ever part of that?
I was never a part of that. I do have quite a few friends that have been a part of IPNC. It seems like a really great program and a really great event that I've always been kind of interested in. So maybe someday I'll be over there. But I didn't know that Depot Bay cooked the salmon. That's awesome.
Yeah. I was there several times for
cool.
it. They even contracted the Mondavi family, contracted with us to go down to California
and do a
salmon bake in California at one of the wineries as well.
That's awesome.
So the Depot Bay Chamber, by default, has been active in the wine industry as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know that's a big part of a big tradition at IPNC, the salmon bake. So that's really cool that Depot Bay is a part of that. I didn't know that.
You got the Riesling, Gewürztraminer, Pinot Gris, Chardonnay, and then you get into the reds.
Yeah. So for whites, we produce Riesling, Pinot Gris, Chardonnay. We do a stainless steel Chardonnay, so more of an Oregon style of Chardonnay. We also produce a Pinot Blanc. Pinot Blanc's kind of a little bit of a rare varietal in Oregon, but grows really well in the Willamette Valley. It's a genetic mutation of Pinot Noir like Pinot Gris and Chardonnay, so they all do really well in the Willamette Valley. Those German grape varietals also do really well in the Willamette Valley. We're the only cool climate wine region on the West Coast. All those German grape varietals originate from a classic old world example of a cool climate wine region, so they grow really well in the Willamette Valley.
Travis, we appreciate you being here. If somebody wants to go to the one of the 2 wineries or both, you're open when?
We're open 11 to 5 every day in Depot Bay, and then we're open 10 to 5 every day in Nehalem at our Nehalem Bay Winery. And we also hit the road a lot, too, and do a lot of off-site events.
Travis Stencil, the Hale Bay Winery, Depot Bay Winery, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Bob's Beach Books in the Ocean Lake area of Lincoln City does in fact have what you'll want to read. I'm Diana Portwood, and if we happen to be out of a particular bestseller, in a day or two we'll have it back in the store waiting for you. Bob's Beach Books, so you can join the conversation.
Northwest Septic Service is your one-stop shop for all your septic needs.
Northwest Septic Service offers pumping, maintenance, repair, and inspections with one call, 541-994-6977.
Buying or selling a home? Northwest Septic Service can inspect your sewer line or an entire septic system.
Old or failing septic system? Northwest Septic Service can rejuvenate most drain fields, saving you thousands of dollars. 541-994-6977.
Serving Lincoln, Tillamook, and Yamhill counties, Northwest Septic Service. Well, we start off at the beginning of the program talking about the busy week that Paul has had. This week is going to be equally busy for the Lincoln City City Council because Monday night, the 13th at 6 o'clock, it's a regular City Council meeting. They're going to back that up with a Budget Committee meeting May 20th at 5 o'clock. So that's a lot of numbers that they got to get together and talk about and put together, but they got a staff that is more than capable of doing that. Elsewhere around the city, Parks and Recreation Board is going to be meeting on May 15th. And, of course, they've got some major projects forthcoming. If you would like to help out with the fundraising activities, get hold of Jeannie Sprague. There's somebody that has got as much enthusiasm about parks as any person I think I've ever met.
Yeah, and we're lucky to have her in Lincoln City and working for Parks and Rec, so we're thankful for her and the whole team out there.
Absolutely. And speaking of Parks and Rec, Touch a Truck is going to be on Saturday, June 22nd, 12 to 2 at the Community Center. Watchtower dedication ceremony, Saturday, May 25. I keep talking about this. It is a special tribute for the veterans. This is at the cemetery overlooking Inn at Spanish Head up on top of the hill. I would venture a guess if 10% of the population of Lincoln City has been to that cemetery, I'd be surprised.
Well, and if they haven't, this is the opportunity to go and see the dedication and just see that wonderful space up there, that solemn space. Yeah,
it is. It really is. Grief Support Group is getting together. They meet at Samaritan North Lincoln Hospital Campus, Conference Room B in Building 5. That's 2 to 3 on the first and third Tuesdays of each month. Drove down to Newport, and I see the highway, the old scenic highway, is a little bit blocked off.
Old scenic on Cape Fowl there.
Yep. The Frontage Road Bridge Preservation Program is underway with that. So if you have to go that way, drive careful, keep your eyes wide open, watch for all of the flaggers as well, because it's critically important we don't hurt anybody. Lincoln City National Night Out, free of charge, Tuesday, August the 6th. That's way down the road, but put it on your calendar. It's something for you to be involved in. And speaking of dedications, I was looking for my dedication on the Veterans Park, the flag, something that's really near and dear to my heart. That's on Flag Day, June 14th. And we'll have an opportunity, thanks to the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, for their grant for the American Legion Post in the city of Lincoln City coming together. Again, Parks and Rec. Coming together with two outside organizations to erect a lighted flagpole to commemorate the work that all of the veterans have done. Now, activities that you had and got coming up, you're going to have some mussel harvesting this weekend.
So, yeah, I'm actually going to be teaching a class with the Oregon Coast Community College for mussel harvesting in the Cascade Head Marine Protected Area. ? That's actually the name of the class. And so it's a little class where you get to learn how to harvest mussels legally and safely, and I might even cook you a few. But that's for Friday, and it's filled up, I think, already. So
yeah, it is full already.
Yeah, we've got a good turnout.
Wanted to make certain that if the class had not been filled, we'd give it an extra little shot. Now, we're going to be giving away a coupon for Chinook Winds Casino Resort for the buffet. It's a $30 coupon good at any of the food outlets and or for the buffet, whichever you wish to have. We're going to have a giveaway for people that
reply to our question, and the question is, have you participated in any of this fermentation? And if so, tell us a little bit about it. Maybe a recipe, maybe your favorite fermented beverage, anything that might have to do with today's program.
And making it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So just send an email to roger@rshow.com and give us a little bit of insight into your world of fermentation.
This has really been kind of a fun program to do because it's things a lot of us talk about but really don't have the knowledge that we had that we've got in the area.
Yeah, that was great to hear all the experts in their respective fields.
Yes.
Out in the field, too, if you're a barley person, maybe. We didn't hear that side of it. But, yeah, there's the growing side of it. There's the fermentation and the time.
Yep, a lot of time. And once you've got it in the bottle, the time just begins to march on. With Paul, I think that'll do to the doings on the Double R Show. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share so you, your family, and friends around the world and across the street can join us on the Double R Show. For Jenna and Paul, I am Double R. Have a happy day.
You've been listening to the Double R Show. Join Roger and Paul Robertson as they explore everything about North Lincoln County. The Double R Show, produced by Always Productions and hosted by Roger Robertson. Have a story? Email contact@alwaysproductions.com or call 458-201-3039. For the Double R Show, I'm Jana Grawn.